Please. No. Don't touch me. The helicopters. I can hear them. The elderly man's screams echoed through Terminal 4 at JFK International Airport, but the crowd of travelers simply parted around him like water around a stone. Some rolled their eyes. Others pulled out phones to record. A few muttered complaints about delays. Marcus Chun, 68, stood frozen at the TSA security checkpoint, his whole body trembling. Sweat poured down his weathered face despite the airport's aggressive air conditioning. His worn Vietnam veteran's cap sat crooked on his silver hair, and his hands, calloused hands that had once commanded thousands, now shook uncontrollably as he clutched his faded duffel bag. "Sir, you need to move through the scanner." TSA Supervisor Derek Hammond's voice carried the sharp edge of impatience and barely concealed contempt. "You're holding up the entire line." Behind Marcus, a businessman in a $3,000 suit checked his Rolex ostentatiously. "Come on, old man. Some of us have first-class flights to catch." A woman in designer yoga wear wrinkled her nose. "Why do they even let people like that fly? He clearly can't handle it." Marcus's breathing became rapid and shallow. His eyes darted around wildly, seeing not the modern airport terminal, but the jungles of Vietnam in 1968. The beeping of the metal detector became helicopter rotors. The fluorescent lights transformed into flare bursts. The crowds of passengers morphed into enemy soldiers closing in. "The ambush," he whispered, dropping to his knees. "We're surrounded. I need to call for extraction. Where's my radio? Where's my unit?" Derek Hammond approached with two security officers, their faces showing no compassion, only annoyance at the disruption to their orderly processing line. "Sir, if you can't comply with security procedures, we'll have to remove you from the checkpoint." "He's probably faking it for attention," whispered a teenager to his friend, filming the scene on his phone. "This is going straight to TikTok." Standing at Checkpoint Station 7, Jamal Washington, 34, watched the scene unfold with a heavy heart he knew too well. A TSA agent for 8 years, he'd seen how the system treated people who didn't fit the mold of acceptable, convenient travelers. But this was different. This hit closer to home than anyone around him could possibly understand. Jamal's younger brother, Tyler, had returned from Afghanistan 3 years ago with severe PTSD. Jamal had held Tyler through countless episodes just like this one. The flashbacks, the panic, the desperate confusion of a mind trapped between two realities. He'd watched his brother struggle to do simple things like grocery shopping or riding the subway, all while strangers stared, judged, and walked away. Tyler had taken his own life 18 months ago. Jamal found him. "Mr. Hammond," Jamal said quietly, stepping away from his station. "Let me handle this. I think I can help." Derek turned, his expression hardening. "Washington, get back to your post. We have 200 people backed up here, and I'm not letting some homeless vet disrupt operations because he decided to have a meltdown in my security zone. He's not homeless. Look at his bag tag. He has a ticket. He's a passenger having a medical emergency." "Medical emergency?" Derek laughed coldly, pulling out his phone to record. "The man's disturbed. Probably off his meds. Security can handle him." The two security officers moved toward Marcus, who was now curled on the floor, hands over his head, muttering about incoming fire and casualty reports. One officer reached down to grab Marcus's arm. "Don't touch him." Jamal's voice cut through the terminal noise with unexpected authority. He stepped between the officers and Marcus, his 6'3" frame suddenly seeming much larger. "You grab someone in the middle of a PTSD flashback, you'll make it 10 times worse." Derek's face flushed red. "Washington, I'm giving you a direct order. Return to your station immediately, or you're fired." The entire security checkpoint had gone silent. Passengers stopped mid-scan. Other TSA agents paused, watching nervously. Everyone sensed they were witnessing something that would either end very badly or become the most talked-about incident at JFK in years. Jamal looked at Marcus, saw Tyler's face in the old man's terror, and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Then fire me," he said softly, kneeling beside Marcus. "Because I'm not walking away from someone who needs help." Jamal knelt slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and visible. "Sir, my name is Jamal. You're safe. You're at an airport in New York. The year is 2024. Marcus's wild eyes focused on Jamal's face for just a second before darting away again. The trees. They're in the trees. We need to fall back. There are no trees here, sir. Feel the floor beneath you. It's solid. It's tile. Feel how cold it is. Jamal placed his hand flat on the ground near Marcus. Can you feel that? Derek Hammond circled them like a predator, his phone camera capturing everything. This is perfect. The TSA is going to love seeing how one of their agents abandoned his post to play therapist with some crazy vagrant. He's wearing a Vietnam veteran's cap, Jamal said calmly, not looking away from Marcus. That means he served his country before most of us were even born. So what? That gives him the right to cause a scene. Derek's voice dripped with contempt. He raised his voice, addressing the crowd of passengers who had gathered, many with phones out. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. We're removing this individual and the employee who enabled him. A few passengers applauded. Most just wanted to get through security. But a handful looked uncomfortable, including an older woman who stepped forward. That man is clearly ill, she said. Why aren't you helping him instead of humiliating him? Ma'am, please proceed through security, or you'll be removed as well, Derek snapped. Jamal continued his quiet conversation with Marcus, using techniques he'd learned from Tyler's therapists. Sir, can you tell me your name? Just your name. One piece of information. Chun, Marcus whispered. Major Marcus Chun, 5th Battalion, 7th Cavalry. Major Chun, my brother was Army too. He served in Kandahar. He came home with wounds you couldn't see, just like yours. I understand what's happening to you right now. Something in Jamal's voice, the genuine empathy rather than pity, cut through the fog. Marcus's breathing slowed fractionally. His hands stopped trembling quite so violently. Your brother, Marcus said, his voice slightly clearer. Did he make it? Jamal's throat tightened. He fought hard, sir. So hard. But the war followed him home. Marcus met Jamal's eyes fully for the first time, and in that moment, two strangers connected through shared loss and understanding. I'm sorry, son. It never really ends, does it? No, sir, but we can get through the moment. We can take it 1 minute at a time. Can you stand up with me? Derek Hammond had seen enough. Washington, you're done. Effective immediately, you're terminated from the Transportation Security Administration. Remove your badge and escort yourself off the premises. Jamal stood slowly, helping Marcus to his feet. The older man leaned heavily on him, still disoriented, but no longer lost in the flashback. Mr. Hammond, with all due respect, my shift ends at 4 p.m. Until then, I'm going to make sure Major Chin gets the help he needs. Your shift ended the moment you defied my direct order. Derek's voice carried through the terminal. He turned to address the other agents. Let this be a lesson to all of you. We have procedures for a reason. We can't let every bleeding heart with a sob story disrupt operations. What Derek didn't know was that Jamal Washington wasn't just some TSA agent trying to get by. Before taking this job to support his mother after his father's death, Jamal had been 3 years into a master's degree in clinical psychology with a focus on trauma and PTSD. He'd worked at the VA hospital in Brooklyn, counseling returning soldiers. He'd published research papers on crisis intervention for veterans with PTSD. Financial circumstances, his father's sudden death, his mother's medical bills, Tyler's treatment costs, had forced him to put his career on hold. But he'd never stopped learning, never stopped caring, never stopped recognizing the signs that others missed. As he supported Marcus toward a quieter area, Jamal noticed details that everyone else had overlooked. The worn duffel bag was actually vintage Louis Vuitton, probably worth $5,000. Marcus's watch, which looked simple from a distance, had intricate complications visible up close, an IWC pilot's watch that retailed for around $12,000. His hands, though trembling, bore the calluses of someone who'd spent decades signing important documents, not doing manual labor. And most telling of all, when Marcus had instinctively reached for his wallet during the flashback, Jamal had glimpsed not a veteran's benefits card, but multiple black credit cards, the kind with no spending limits. Rebecca, Derek called to one of the TSA agents. Call airport police. I want both of them escorted out, and I want trespassing charges filed if they resist. Rebecca Ford, a 45-year-old agent who'd worked with Jamal for 6 years, hesitated. Derek, maybe we should just let them go quietly. The man is clearly having a medical issue. Are you questioning me too? Derek's face had gone crimson. Because I've got plenty of open shifts at 4 a.m. if you want to keep pushing. Rebecca fell silent, but she pulled out her own phone and began recording. Not to share Derek's version of events, but to document what she suspected was about to become a major scandal. Marcus's breathing had steadied considerably. The episode was passing, as they always eventually did. His eyes cleared further, and he looked at Jamal with growing lucidity and confusion. "Why did you help me?" he asked. "Why risk your job for a stranger?" "Because someone needed to, sir. Because it was the right thing to do." Jamal helped Marcus sit on a bench away from the crowds. "Do you know where you were trying to go today?" Marcus frowned, struggling to remember. "Singapore. Business meeting. My company. I have a company. Chun Defense Technologies. We make." He paused, frustrated. "I know this. Why can't I remember?" "PTSD can affect memory, especially during an episode," Jamal explained gently. "It's okay to take a moment to orient yourself." Derek appeared with 2 airport police officers. There he is, the employee who abandoned his post and the vagrant who caused the disruption. "I want both of them removed immediately." Officer James Rodriguez looked between Derek, Jamal, and Marcus, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, if this man was having a medical emergency." "He wasn't. He was being disruptive, and this," Derek pointed at Jamal, "this former employee encouraged his behavior. I've already documented everything on video, and I'm sending it directly to TSA headquarters and every airport security director I know. Jamal Washington will never work in transportation security again." Derek pulled out his laptop right there in the terminal and began typing furiously, copying multiple email addresses. "Let's see. Kennedy, Washington, LaGuardia, Newark. Oh, and I'll make sure this gets shared in our private industry groups too. By tomorrow morning, every airport, train station, and security company on the East Coast will know not to hire you." Jamal felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Jobs weren't easy to find, especially ones that paid enough to cover his mother's medical expenses. Derek wasn't just firing him. He was trying to destroy any chance of employment in his field. "Derek, you're making a mistake," Rebecca said quietly, still recording. "The only mistake was hiring people like him in the first place," Derek replied, his voice carrying an edge that made several nearby passengers look up sharply. Marcus struggled to his feet, his military bearing reasserting itself despite his confusion. "Young man, you shouldn't suffer because you helped me. I'll figure this out. I have resources. I need to call my daughter." "Sir, let me help you make that call," Jamal said, ignoring Derek's continued rant. "Don't bother," Derek called after them. "Security is going to escort you both out in handcuffs if necessary." What Derek Hammond didn't know, what he couldn't have known because he judged based solely on appearance and circumstance, was that Marcus Chun wasn't just a confused veteran with PTSD. He was the founder and CEO of Chun Defense Technologies, a company with $4.3 billion in annual revenue and exclusive contracts with the Pentagon, NATO, and 15 foreign governments. The business meeting in Singapore, Marcus had forgotten about, was actually a $2 billion deal to provide next-generation communication systems to the U.S. Pacific Fleet. The daughter he needed to call was Catherine Chun, who ran the day-to-day operations of the company and was currently preparing to deploy every lawyer in their legal department against whoever had caused her father's latest emergency. And the wallet that Marcus now pulled from his pocket with trembling fingers contained not just black credit cards, but also his Department of Defense contractor credentials, board memberships for 3 major defense companies, and a personal phone number for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. As Jamal helped Marcus find his daughter's number in his phone, Derek Hammond was already uploading videos to a private industry group chat, completely confident that he'd handled a disruptive situation with appropriate authority. He had absolutely no idea that he'd just humiliated and fired the only person who could have saved him from what was about to become the most expensive mistake of his entire career. Jamal sat with Marcus on a bench in a quiet corner of the terminal, away from the crowds and Derek's continuing tirade. The older man's hands still shook slightly, but his eyes had cleared significantly. "Catherine," Marcus said suddenly, remembering. "My daughter Catherine. She handles everything really. I'm not supposed to travel alone anymore. I insisted this morning. Told her I was fine." He laughed bitterly. "Clearly, I was wrong. It's okay, sir. Let's get her on the phone." Jamal noticed Marcus struggling with his smartphone's security features. "May I?" Marcus nodded gratefully, and as Jamal took the phone, his eyes widened slightly at the screen. The wallpaper showed Marcus in a suit shaking hands with the President of the United States. Behind them hung the seal of the President. The photo was recent. He scrolled to contacts and found Catherine daughter, with 3 phone numbers listed. He pressed the first one. The voice that answered was sharp, professional, and barely concealing panic. "Dad? Oh, thank God. Where are you? We've had security looking everywhere. Your driver said you gave him the slip at the house." "Ms. Chun, my name is Jamal Washington. I'm with your father at JFK Airport. He's safe, but he had an episode at security." The silence on the other end lasted 3 heartbeats. "What kind of episode? Is he hurt? Put him on speaker." Jamal complied. "Dad, it's Katie. Can you hear me?" "I hear you, honey." Marcus's voice wavered. "I'm sorry. I thought I could do it. I thought I could handle a simple flight. We've talked about this." Catherine's voice softened with love and exasperation. "You don't have to prove anything. I'm sending the plane. What gate are you near?" "We're not at a gate," Jamal interjected. He was removed from the security checkpoint during the episode. The supervisor here called it a disruption. "The supervisor removed my father from security?" Catherine's voice had gone very quiet, very cold. "I'm going to need you to tell me exactly what happened. Every detail." As Jamal recounted the events, he could hear someone on Catherine's end typing rapidly. Marcus sat beside him, occasionally adding details or corrections as his memory cleared. "And this supervisor, Derek Hammond, he fired you for helping my father?" "Yes, ma'am. And then he sent videos and emails to other security directors blacklisting you from employment?" "That's what he said he was doing, yes." More typing. Then Catherine's voice changed, became the voice of someone used to commanding boardrooms and billion-dollar negotiations. "Mr. Washington, where exactly are you in the terminal? I'm sending our head of security to collect both of you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. "Ma'am, you don't need to. Mr. Washington, you helped my father when no one else would, when everyone else walked away. That means something to me. Now please, stay exactly where you are." After hanging up, Marcus pulled out his wallet with steadier hands. "I should give you my insurance information. I don't know, for troubling you." "Sir, you don't need to." Jamal stopped as Marcus opened the wallet fully. Inside was an ID card that read Marcus Chun, Chairman and CEO, Chun Defense Technologies. Below that was a Department of Defense contractor badge with Level 5 clearance. Business cards from senators. A personal card from a 4-star general. And tucked behind everything else, a yellowed photograph of a much younger Marcus in dress uniform, shaking hands with President Nixon. Jamal's hands trembled as he looked at the wallet's contents. Then he pulled out his phone and Googled Marcus Chun, Chun Defense Technologies. The results loaded. $4.3 billion in annual revenue. Founder and principal shareholder. Net worth estimated at $5.7 billion. Major contracts with U.S. Department of Defense. Revolutionary communication systems used by every branch of the military. Publicly disclosed PTSD diagnosis from Vietnam service, with Marcus having become a major advocate and donor for veteran mental health causes. There was even a recent article from Defense News. Chun Technologies CEO continues work despite health challenges. Company maintains $2.1 billion in active contracts. "Oh my God," Jamal whispered. Marcus noticed his expression and smiled sadly. "Found it, did you? Doesn't change anything about what happened back there. I'm still just a confused old man to people like that supervisor. Sir, he had no idea who you are. Shouldn't matter who I am. Should matter that I'm human." Marcus met Jamal's eyes. "You saw that. You saw me as a person who needed help, not as a problem to be removed." Meanwhile, back at the security checkpoint, Derek Hammond was basking in what he thought was his moment of triumph. He'd gathered several TSA agents around his computer, showing them the emails he'd sent. "See, I've already got responses from 3 airports confirming they've noted Washington's file. He'll be lucky to get a job as a mall cop after this." Derek laughed, refreshing his email. "And look, the story's already spreading in our industry chat groups. Everyone agrees I handled it perfectly." Rebecca Ford stood slightly apart from the group, her phone in her hand, having sent her own emails to some very different contacts, including a journalist friend who specialized in discrimination cases and her cousin who worked for the ACLU. "Derek," she said carefully, "did you verify who that man was before you had him removed? What does it matter? He was disruptive, and Washington was insubordinate. End of story. It's just the watch he was wearing. The bag. They looked expensive." Derek waved dismissively. "Probably fakes. These stolen valor types love to dress up and pretend they're something they're not." Tony Martinez, one of the other TSA agents who'd witnessed everything, spoke up nervously. "Derek, I think Rebecca might have a point. I saw the guy's wallet when it fell out. Those weren't normal credit cards. Then he probably stole them," Derek snapped. "Why are you all second-guessing me? I'm the supervisor. I made the call. It's done." That's when a man in a perfectly tailored black suit walked through the checkpoint, completely ignoring the security procedures. 2 airport police officers who'd been standing nearby suddenly straightened and made no move to stop him. "Derek Hammond?" the man asked, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who never needed to shout. "Yes? And you need to go through security like everyone. My name is Robert Torres. I'm head of security for Chun Defense Technologies." He showed a badge that made both airport officers step back. "I need to know exactly what happened here today regarding Marcus Chun." Derek's face went pale. "Chun?" The man's name was. "I didn't get his name." "You didn't get his name," Robert repeated slowly. "You removed a man from your security checkpoint, allowed him to be humiliated in front of hundreds of people, and fired an employee for helping him, and you didn't even get his name. He was being disruptive. He was clearly having a PTSD episode." Robert cut him off. "Marcus Chun is a Medal of Honor recipient, a billionaire defense contractor, and a man who single-handedly developed the communication systems that have saved thousands of American soldiers' lives. And you called him a vagrant." The blood drained from Derek's face entirely. Around him, other TSA agents were already stepping away, distancing themselves from what was clearly about to be a Category 5 career hurricane. I didn't know. He didn't look like. Didn't look like what, Mr. Hammond? Didn't look rich enough? Important enough? Didn't fit your image of who deserves dignity and respect." Derek's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. His hands shook as he reached for his computer, probably already calculating how to delete the emails he'd sent. "Don't bother," Robert said, reading his intention. "Those emails are already being collected by our legal team. The videos you took, also being preserved as evidence. Every witness here will be interviewed. And Mr. Hammond, the gentleman you fired, Jamal Washington, he's about to become a very wealthy man, courtesy of the lawsuit Chun Technologies' legal team is preparing against you, this airport, and the TSA." Robert turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Mr. Hammond, that disruptive vagrant you removed, he was on his way to sign a $2 billion contract with the Singapore Ministry of Defense. A contract that required his personal presence. A contract that will now be delayed because of your actions. You might want to start looking for a very good lawyer. You're going to need one." As Robert walked away to collect Marcus and Jamal, Derek Hammond stood frozen in the middle of his checkpoint, watching his entire career, and possibly his financial future, crumble in real time. His phone began buzzing incessantly. Emails, text messages, calls from TSA headquarters, all wanting to know the same thing. "Is it true you assaulted a Medal of Honor recipient and fired an employee for preventing a discrimination lawsuit?" There, in the middle of Terminal 4 at JFK International Airport, Derek Hammond finally understood that he hadn't just made a mistake. He'd declared war on the wrong person, underestimated a hero, and destroyed the career of the only man who'd shown actual competence during the entire crisis. And now, everyone would know it. Catherine Chun arrived at JFK in a convoy that made passengers stop and stare. 2 black SUVs, a Mercedes sedan, and her personal attorney, Michelle Rodriguez, who'd once successfully sued the State Department for discrimination and won $47 million. She found her father sitting calmly with Jamal, the two men deep in conversation about trauma therapy techniques. Catherine was 45, impeccably dressed in a Tom Ford suit, and carried herself with the bearing of someone who ran a multi-billion-dollar company before most people finished their morning coffee. "Dad." Her voice cracked slightly as she embraced Marcus. "You scared me." "I know, honey. I'm sorry. I thought. We'll talk about it later." She turned to Jamal, extending her hand. "Mr. Washington, I can never thank you enough for what you did. Anyone would have done the same, ma'am." "No," Marcus said firmly. "They didn't. Hundreds of people walked past me. Your supervisor actively prevented help. You were the only one who saw me as a person." Catherine's jaw tightened. "About that supervisor. I'd like to meet him." "Michelle." Michelle Rodriguez stepped forward with a tablet. "I've already been in contact with TSA headquarters, airport management, and the police commissioner. The video of the incident has been secured from multiple sources, including several passengers who posted to social media before Mr. Hammond could try to control the narrative." "Good. Let's go have a conversation with Derek Hammond." Jamal started to object. "Ms. Chun, you really don't have to." "Yes, I do." Catherine cut him off gently. "You lost your job defending my father. That makes it my business. Now, are you coming with us, or would you prefer to wait here?" 10 minutes later, the group walked back into the security checkpoint area. Derek Hammond was still at his post, now surrounded by two TSA administrators who'd arrived from the main office and the airport's director of operations. He saw them coming, and his face went from pale to gray. "Mr. Hammond," Catherine said, her voice carrying across the terminal. Passengers stopped. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "That's Catherine Chun." "Oh my God, she's here." Derek straightened his shoulders, trying to project authority he no longer had. "Ms. Chun, I'm sure we can discuss this reasonably. There were procedures that you violated," Catherine cut him off. "Michelle, please outline for Mr. Hammond exactly what he did wrong today." Michelle consulted her tablet. "At 9:47 a.m., you approached Marcus Chun, who was experiencing a documented medical condition, PTSD from military service. Instead of calling for medical assistance per TSA protocols, you threatened to have him removed. At 9:52 a.m., when TSA agent Jamal Washington attempted to provide assistance using proper crisis intervention techniques, you countermanded him. At 9:55 a.m., you terminated Agent Washington's employment without consulting with his union representative or following proper termination procedures. At 10:03 a.m., you sent emails to 17 different security directors containing false and defamatory statements about Agent Washington's performance. At 10:15 a.m., you posted about this incident in private industry groups, further damaging Agent Washington's reputation and employment prospects. With each word, Derek seemed to shrink. Around him, the two administrators were taking notes, their faces grave. "Mr. Hammond," Catherine continued, "do you know what Chin Defense Technologies does?" Defense contracts," Derek stammered. "Correct. We hold contracts with every branch of the U.S. military, NATO, and 15 allied nations. We employ over 30,000 people. We have annual revenue of $4.3 billion. My father personally holds 73 patents on communication and security systems. Systems that protect TSA agents, Mr. Hammond. Systems that keep Americans safe." She stepped closer, and Derek actually took a step back. "And you called him a vagrant. You humiliated a Medal of Honor recipient. You prevented him from receiving medical assistance for a documented disability. And then you destroyed the career of the one person who showed basic human decency." "I didn't know who he was," Derek whispered. "That's the point." Catherine's voice rang out like a gunshot. "You shouldn't need to know someone's net worth to treat them with dignity. You shouldn't need to see someone's bank account to show compassion. My father could have been actually homeless, actually confused with no resources, and he still would have deserved your help." The crowd of passengers broke into spontaneous applause. Some were recording. Within minutes, the video would be viral. One of the TSA administrators stepped forward. "Ms. Chun, on behalf of the Transportation Security Administration, I want to apologize. Save it, Catherine cut him off. Apologies are words. I want action. I want every policy reviewed. I want disability and mental health training made mandatory. I want Agent Washington reinstated immediately with back pay and a promotion. And I want a guarantee that no one else will ever be treated the way my father was treated today. She turned back to Derek, who looked like he wanted the floor to open and swallow him whole. As for you, Mr. Hammond, my attorney will be filing a personal lawsuit against you for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and disability discrimination. The airport and TSA will face corporate suits, but you personally will be held accountable for your actions. Derek's phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. He glanced at it, and his face went from gray to green. One email subject line was visible. Termination effective immediately, cause for dismissal. You're fired, Derek, the TSA administrator said, her voice cold. Security will escort you from the premises. Your credentials are revoked, and I can personally guarantee you'll never work in transportation security again. Not in this country. Derek looked around desperately, searching for sympathy, for support, for anything. He found only turned backs and disgusted faces. Even the agents who'd laughed at his jokes earlier now looked away. Rebecca stepped forward. For what it's worth, Derek, I recorded everything too. Every discriminatory comment. Every time you mocked an employee or passenger. Every time you abused your power. It's all documented. And it's all going to the EEOC, the ACLU, and every news outlet that wants it. You betrayed me. Derek sputtered. No, you betrayed every principle we're supposed to represent. Rebecca turned to Jamal. Welcome back, brother. Your station's waiting. But Catherine shook her head. Actually, Agent Washington won't be returning to that station. Jamal's heart sank. Had he misunderstood? Was he not being rehired after all? Catherine smiled. He'll be too busy serving as the head of community outreach and veteran services for Chun Defense Technologies. Salary $180,000 plus benefits, with full tuition coverage to complete your master's degree in clinical psychology. We need someone to oversee our new $50 million Veterans Mental Health Initiative. If you're interested, of course. The terminal went silent. Jamal stood frozen, unable to process what he'd just heard. Marcus stepped forward, placing a hand on Jamal's shoulder. You saved me today, son. Not just from the episode, but from being invisible, being forgotten, being less than human in the eyes of people who should know better. That kind of compassion, that kind of integrity, that's rare. That's valuable. That's exactly what our company needs. Jamal's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Catherine said simply. Say you'll help us make sure no veteran, no person with PTSD or any mental health challenge, ever has to feel what my father felt today. Yes, Jamal whispered. Then louder, yes. Absolutely yes. The crowd erupted in applause again. Passengers were crying. Rebecca was crying. Even the stoic TSA administrator was wiping her eyes. Derek Hammond was escorted out by security, his former colleagues not even looking at him as he passed. His phone continued buzzing with messages, almost certainly former contacts cutting ties, employers rescinding job offers he hadn't even applied for yet, colleagues erasing him from their professional networks. As Catherine's team prepared to leave, Michelle Rodriguez approached one of the passengers who'd been recording the entire confrontation. Would you mind sending me that video? The passenger, a young woman in her 20s, grinned. Already posted it to TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. It's got 500,000 views in the last 10 minutes. #AirportJustice is trending. Perfect, Michelle said. Evidence preservation at its finest. Outside the terminal, as they walked toward the waiting cars, Marcus turned to Jamal. Can I ask you something personal? Of course, sir. Your brother, the one who served in Kandahar. What was his name? Tyler. Tyler Washington. Tyler Washington, Marcus repeated, as if committing it to memory. The Veterans Mental Health Initiative we're starting. I'd like to name it after him, if that's okay with you. The Tyler Washington Center for Combat Trauma and PTSD. Jamal stopped walking. He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only nod as tears streamed down his face. Catherine put an arm around him. Come on. Let's get you home to tell your mother the good news. Something tells me she's going to want to hear this. Inside the terminal, Derek Hammond walked out through a side entrance, no longer an authority figure, no longer someone who controlled people's fates with casual cruelty. Just a man who'd learned far too late that power without compassion is just tyranny in uniform. And that tyranny, when exposed to light, burns up faster than paper in flame. 6 months later, Jamal Washington stood at a podium in the ballroom of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Washington, D.C., facing an audience of 500 people, veterans, senators, defense contractors, journalists, and mental health advocates. Behind him, a massive banner read, Tyler Washington Center for Combat Trauma and PTSD Grand Opening. When my brother Tyler came home from Afghanistan, Jamal began, his voice steady, he was still fighting a war that only he could see. And for 3 years, I watched him battle that invisible enemy alone, because our society taught him that asking for help was weakness, that showing vulnerability was failure, that real soldiers just pushed through. He paused, looking out at the crowd. In the front row sat Marcus Chun, looking more clear-eyed and present than he had in years, thanks to new treatment protocols the center had developed. Beside him, Catherine Chun beamed with pride. Tyler lost that battle 18 months ago. But today, we're making sure his death wasn't meaningless. Today, we're opening 5 treatment centers across the country, each one dedicated to providing free, comprehensive care for veterans suffering from PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and combat trauma. The applause was thunderous. This wouldn't have been possible without the vision and generosity of Marcus Chun and Chun Defense Technologies, a man who knows firsthand the cost of service and the price of invisible wounds. Marcus stood, waving to acknowledge the applause, then gestured for Jamal to continue. But I also want to talk about what brought us here. 6 months ago, I was fired from my job at JFK Airport for doing what any decent human being should do, helping someone in crisis. My supervisor, Derek Hammond, believed that compassion was a weakness, that procedures mattered more than people, that someone's appearance determined their worth. The room had gone quiet, everyone leaning forward. Derek taught me something invaluable that day. He taught me that systems only work when the people running them have humanity. That authority without empathy is just cruelty with a badge. And that the people we dismiss, ignore, or judge might be the ones who change our lives forever. Jamal's voice grew stronger. Today, Derek Hammond is unemployed, facing multiple lawsuits, and dealing with the consequences of his choices. But I don't tell you this for revenge. I tell you this because his story needs to be a lesson. Every person you encounter deserves dignity. Every crisis deserves compassion. And every time you choose kindness over convenience, you might just save someone's life. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Cameras flashed. Reporters took notes frantically. After the speech, Marcus approached Jamal with a woman Jamal didn't recognize. A striking black woman in her 60s wearing military dress uniform adorned with medals. Jamal, I'd like you to meet General Patricia Williams, head of the Department of Veterans Affairs. General Williams shook Jamal's hand firmly. Mr. Washington, the VA has been watching your work here. We'd like to implement your crisis intervention protocols at every VA hospital in the country. We're prepared to offer a $25 million contract to train our staff using your methods. Jamal blinked in shock. General, I'm honored, but I'm not sure I'm qualified to. You're more than qualified, Marcus interjected. You've spent the last 6 months developing the most comprehensive PTSD intervention program in the country. You've personally trained 200 counselors. You've reduced crisis incidents at our pilot facilities by 73%. And most importantly, you've saved lives. 17 veterans who came through our doors in the last 6 months told us they were planning to end their lives that day. Every single one of them is alive because of the program you built. Catherine Chin appeared with Michelle Rodriguez, both women carrying folders. Jamal, we need to talk about the settlements. They moved to a private conference room. Michelle opened her folder with the satisfied smile of a lawyer who'd just won everything. The TSA settlement came through this morning. $2.7 million for wrongful termination, defamation, and emotional distress. The airport's insurance company settled for an additional $1.2 million. and Derek Hammond personally is being held liable for $800,000 in the defamation suit. His homeowner's insurance is covering it, which means he's essentially judgment-proof going forward, but the ruling stands. Jamal sat down heavily. $4.7 million? That's just for you, Catherine added. The TSA also agreed to implement mandatory disability awareness training, to revise their crisis response protocols, and to establish a $10 million fund for improving mental health support at airports nationwide. Oh, and they issued a formal apology, in writing on letterhead, signed by the administrator. What happened to Derek? Jamal asked quietly. Michelle consulted another document. Derek Hammond filed for bankruptcy 3 months ago. The legal fees wiped him out. He lost his house, his car, his savings. He's currently working as a night security guard at a strip mall in Queens, making $15 an hour. He applied to over 200 jobs in transportation and security. Every single application was rejected. His wife divorced him, Catherine added. The videos of him mocking your father went viral. He's been recognized in public, harassed online. His life as he knew it is over. Jamal felt no satisfaction in hearing it. That's sad. I mean, he brought it on himself, but it's still sad. Marcus nodded approvingly. That's the difference between you and him. You have empathy even for someone who tried to destroy you. That's why you're here and he's there. There's more good news, Michelle continued. Rebecca Ford, the TSA agent who documented everything, she was promoted to Terminal Security Director. She's using her position to completely overhaul how they handle passengers with disabilities and mental health conditions. She credits you with inspiring her to stand up. And Tony Martinez? Catherine added. The agent who supported you? He's now our liaison to the TSA for implementing the new protocols. We hired him at $95,000 a year. Jamal shook his head in wonder. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything. You did lose everything, Marcus said gently. Your job, your reputation in your field, your financial security. But you lost those things for the right reasons. And when you lose everything for the right reasons, sometimes the universe gives you back something better. Over the next hour, they discussed plans for expanding the Tyler Washington centers to 10 more cities. They reviewed the curriculum Jamal had developed, a combination of clinical psychology, lived experience, and practical crisis intervention that was already being hailed as revolutionary in veteran care circles. There's one more thing, Catherine said as they prepared to return to the reception. Dad has something he wants to discuss with you. Marcus pulled out a legal document. Jamal, when I die, and let's be honest, with my PTSD and my age, that might not be as far off as we'd like. I'm leaving 15% of my shares in Chin Defense Technologies to the Tyler Washington Foundation. At current valuation, that's approximately $850 million. Jamal's legs actually gave out. He grabbed the table for support. What? No, I can't accept. You're not accepting it. The foundation is. A foundation that will continue your brother's legacy and yours long after we're all gone. A foundation that will make sure no veteran ever feels forgotten or invisible. Marcus's eyes were intense. That day at the airport, you didn't see a billionaire or a homeless person. You saw a human being in pain. That kind of vision is exactly what this world needs. Meanwhile, in Queens, Derek Hammond finished his shift at the strip mall. He walked to his tiny studio apartment, the only place he could afford after the divorce and bankruptcy. His phone buzzed with a Google alert he'd set up months ago. Tyler Washington Center. He read the article about the opening, saw the photos of Jamal at the podium, read about the settlements and the career that had blossomed from that one moment of compassion Derek had tried to punish. Derek sat on his second-hand futon and stared at the wall. He thought about the email he'd gotten that day. Another job rejection, this time from a mall in New Jersey. He thought about his ex-wife's lawyer still pursuing him for back child support. He thought about the GoFundMe someone had started to help him that raised $47 before being shut down due to controversial recipient. But mostly, he thought about that moment 6 months ago when he'd had a choice. Help a confused elderly man or protect his ego and authority. He'd chosen wrong, and that choice had cost him everything. His phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Mr. Hammond, this is Jamal Washington. I heard about your situation. If you're interested in getting help, real help, not judgment, the Tyler Washington Center has a program for people dealing with the aftermath of traumatic life changes. No cost. No publicity. Just help. Let me know if you want the information. Derek stared at the message for a long time. Pride warred with desperation. The old Derek, the one who'd ruled his checkpoint like a petty tyrant, wanted to delete it, to curse Jamal for his pity. But the new Derek, the one who'd lost everything and learned exactly how it felt to be dismissed and forgotten, slowly typed back. Yes. Please. I need help. 3 weeks later, Derek Hammond sat in a therapy session at the Tyler Washington Center in Brooklyn. His therapist was a veteran who'd served in Iraq and now specialized in helping people process shame, loss, and the need to rebuild identity after catastrophic failure. The hardest part, Derek admitted in one session, is knowing I did it to myself. Jamal didn't destroy my life. I destroyed my life. He was just the mirror that showed me who I really was. And who are you now? The therapist asked. I don't know yet, but I'm trying to become someone better than the man I was. It wasn't redemption, not yet. Derek had years of work ahead of him, but it was a start. And that start existed only because Jamal Washington had chosen, once again, to see a person in pain rather than an enemy to be punished. 1 year after the airport incident, Jamal stood at his brother's grave with his mother, Emma Washington. The headstone had been upgraded, paid for by the foundation, and now read, Tyler Washington, U.S. Army, Afghanistan. His battle inspired a movement. His memory saves lives. He'd be so proud of you, baby, Emma said, tears streaming down her face. So proud. I wish he could see it, Mama. I wish he could know that his pain meant something. Oh, he knows. Emma squeezed his hand. Wherever he is, he knows. Jamal's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Center number 6 just opened in Seattle. 40 veterans enrolled in first week. You're changing the world, son. Another text, this one from Rebecca. Just prevented a situation at Terminal 7 using your protocols. Man having panic attack. We got him help instead of cuffs. Your training works. And one more from an unknown number. My name is David Chun, Marcus's nephew. I'm a Marine vet with PTSD. I've been following your work. Your story gave me the courage to get help. 3 months sober. Starting therapy next week. Thank you for showing us it's okay to not be okay. You saved my life without ever meeting me. Jamal saved that message. He saved all of them, hundreds now, from veterans, from families, from people who'd seen his story and found hope in it. That night, Jamal appeared on 60 Minutes for a feature titled, The Man Who Turned Firing into a Fortune and Used It to Save Lives. The interviewer asked, Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Derek Hammond hadn't fired you that day? Jamal considered the question carefully. I think about it sometimes. I'd still be at that checkpoint, still trying to make ends meet, still grieving my brother without purpose. Derek's cruelty became the catalyst for something I never could have built on my own. He thought he was destroying me. Instead, he freed me to become who I was meant to be. Do you forgive him? I'm working on it. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what someone did. It's about refusing to let what they did define the rest of your life. Derek tried to write my ending. Instead, he gave me a new beginning. The segment ended with footage of the Tyler Washington centers across the country. Veterans receiving care, families being reunited, lives being saved. The camera panned across a wall of photos. Veterans who'd come through the program, each one smiling, each one alive, each one proof that compassion could be systematized, that kindness could be scaled, that one person's choice to help could ripple outward into thousands of lives touched. The final shot showed Jamal and Marcus standing together at the original center in Brooklyn, looking at a plaque that read, In memory of Tyler Washington and in honor of every veteran who fought 2 wars, one overseas and one in their own mind. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are not invisible. Marcus, Jamal said as the cameras stopped rolling. Can I ask you something? Anything. That day at the airport, you were confused, lost in the flashback. But there was a moment when you looked at me and you were completely present. Like you knew exactly what was happening. Was that real, or am I imagining it? Marcus smiled mysteriously. Does it matter? I guess not. I just, I sometimes wonder if you knew Derek was going to fire me. If you knew what would happen. Jamal, I'm a 68-year-old man with PTSD and a brilliant daughter who handles my business affairs. Do you really think I fly commercial by accident? Marcus's eyes twinkled. But let's say hypothetically that I wanted to test the humanity of an airport. To see how veterans with visible conditions were treated. To gather evidence for a lawsuit I'd been planning for years against airports that routinely discriminate against passengers with disabilities. Jamal's eyes widened. You set this up? I got lost. That part was real, heartbreakingly real. The PTSD, the confusion, the fear, all real. But whether I chose that particular airport, that particular checkpoint, that particular time of day. Marcus shrugged. What I didn't plan for was you. Someone with genuine compassion, real training, and the moral courage to risk everything to do the right thing. That was pure luck. Or fate. Or divine intervention, depending on what you believe. So Derek walked into a trap? Derek walked into a test. He failed it because of who he is, not because of any trap. If he'd shown compassion, if he'd called medical services, if he'd treated me with basic human dignity, none of the bad things would have happened to him. The test wasn't whether he knew who I was. The test was whether he cared about who I was as a person. Jamal processed this. And the 17 veterans who told us they were going to end their lives are alive because you saw their humanity before you saw their problems. Just like you saw mine. Marcus placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder. Don't overthink it, son. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you were meant to do. And Tyler? He's smiling. As they walked out of the center that evening, past walls covered with thank you notes from veterans and families, past offices full of counselors using Jamal's protocols, past a future that neither of them could have imagined a year ago, Jamal realized something profound. Derek Hammond had tried to make him invisible. Instead, Derek had revealed him to the world. And in trying to destroy one man's life for showing kindness, Derek had accidentally created a movement that would save thousands. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor, and sometimes that humor looks like justice. The Tyler Washington Centers now operated in 43 cities across the United States and had expanded internationally to Germany, Japan, and South Korea, anywhere American veterans lived and needed support. Jamal had completed his PhD in clinical psychology. His dissertation on crisis intervention for combat trauma had won the American Psychological Association's Distinguished Scientific Award for early career contribution. Marcus Chin passed away peacefully in his sleep at age 71, surrounded by family. His funeral was attended by 3 presidents, dozens of senators, and over 2,000 veterans whose lives had been touched by his advocacy. The $850 million he'd left to the Tyler Washington Foundation ensured the centers would operate in perpetuity. Catherine Chin took over as chairman of Chin Defense Technologies and doubled the company's investment in veteran services. Rebecca Ford became regional director for TSA operations in the Northeast, implementing Jamal's protocols across 47 airports. Derek Hammond completed 2 years of therapy at the Tyler Washington Center. He wrote a book titled The Man Who Fired an Angel: How Cruelty Cost Me Everything and Compassion Saved My Life. All proceeds went to veteran mental health charities. He now worked as a counselor at a center helping people rebuild after catastrophic life failures, using his own story as a cautionary tale about the cost of choosing ego over empathy. He would never get his old life back. But he built a new one, smaller, humbler, but infinitely more meaningful. And on the wall of his small apartment hung a framed photo. Derek shaking hands with Jamal at a Tyler Washington Center graduation ceremony, both men smiling, one with pride, one with gratitude. The caption read, "Sometimes the people we try to destroy become the ones who save us. Thank you for teaching me what compassion looks like." Emma Washington, Jamal's mother, lived to see her son receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his work with veterans. She sat in the front row, crying with joy, as the President of the United States placed the medal around her son's neck and said, "Tyler Washington's sacrifice inspired a movement." Jamal Washington's compassion built that movement into something that will outlive us all. And somewhere, in whatever place exists beyond this one, Tyler Washington smiled. His pain had not been wasted. His brother's love had transformed it into hope, and his memory lived on in every veteran who walked through the doors of a center bearing his name and found not judgment, not dismissal, not invisible, but finally seen. If this story moved you, remember, every person you encounter is fighting a battle you can't see. Every moment of compassion matters. Every choice to help instead of judge ripples outward in ways you cannot imagine.